Om Sri Mahaperiyava Sharanam. Voice of God, Volume 1. Main title, Vedic Religion. Chapter 36. Who is responsible? What is the remedy? These days, politicians and educated people together are highly critical of jati. The very mention of jati is considered to be highly uncivilized. Who is responsible for this situation? Who is responsible for a good arrangement to lose its greatness and suffer decline? I had raised this question, is it not? I shall now answer this question. The Brahmin alone is responsible for the wrong opinion being formed about Varna Dharma. The Brahmin alone is responsible for the decline of a dharma which gave spiritual greatness and prosperity to the country and the world through the eons. The Brahmin gave up his duty of Veda Adhyayana, study of the Vedas, and the observance of the rituals. He discarded his duty. Then he left his village and went to the city. He discarded the special acharas, religious disciplines meant for him, and the external symbols of such discipline. He cropped his hair. He started wearing full suit. Giving up the study of Vedas, which is legitimate to him, he took to English education. He plumped for the job doled out by the British. With that, he aped the dress and manners of the white man. He let go a great dharma that came down from the rishis over generations to his parents and grandparents who had protected it and fell for Western education, science, etc. purely out of a craze for more money and bodily comforts. Shastras say that he should have no desire for money and should not accumulate property. So long as he had lived according to this code and worked for general welfare through Veda mantras and yajnas, people of all other jatis showed undiminished love and respect for him. They also looked to him as the role model. Now he gave up what was enjoined on him, left the village, came to the city, took to English education, accepted the job which Englishmen gave, and adopted his lifestyle and thought that by these changes he had become more civilized and put up an air of superiority. The people of other jatis saw this. They who, till now, had looked to him as a role model for all good things started following him in deviating from right conduct. Others too, who were engaged in their own trades with satisfaction, began to leave the village, go to the towns, take to English education and government jobs given by the white man. The Brahmin alone has been doing the intellectual work for thousands of years, is it not? In olden times, his intellect was not used for his self-interest, but was dedicated to the welfare of the world. Because of this speciality of sacrifice, the intellect was sharp like a knife. Now, when he has given up his aim of social welfare and has selfish worldly desires, his intellect must get dimmed. It is to enable him to discharge the duties enjoined on him. He had received intellectual ability as a gift of God. Having given up these duties, the sharpness of his intellect must become blunted. But just as the cycle keeps running for some distance due to the momentum already gathered, although pedaling is stopped, even though the Brahmin gave up his spiritual pursuit and took to worldly education, the strength that had accrued to him due to his ancestors having pedaled remained with him a little. Even if he himself did not pedal, the intellectual brilliance which the ancestors had saved came to him as heredity. It is because of this intellectual ability he excelled in English education to the amazement of Englishmen. He learnt the nuances of their jobs, law, trade, methods, etc., and became skilled to the extent of teaching them the tricks which they did not know. The question arises why Veda Rakshana, preservation of the Vedas, which did not decline even during Muslim rule, declined with the advent of British rule. The reason for this is that science and the machine age came along with the Englishman. Several things came to be discovered which were not known till then. In the field of knowledge, a number of truths came to be known through science. This is of course good, but when this scientific knowledge was put to practical use, desires grew in a big way, leading to misconduct. Science gave birth to machines with which several things could be done. With the advent of electricity, steam power, it became possible to do things fast. A variety of comforts could be had. But these comforts are all for the senses. If comforts are given to senses, they will seek more and more and increase the desires. Thus, unnecessary aids which will destroy the soul multiply. The desire for these comforts, which were never known before and which attracted people of all countries, attracted the Brahmin too. That was another calamity which was the result of science which came with the Englishmen. So-called rationalism led him to think that religious matters which are based on faith and experience were all false. He who did not give up his Swadharma even during Muslim rule now gave it up and went in search of comforts. He learned to dress better than Englishmen in tip-top manner, took to smoking cigarettes and acquired the skill to dance. The Englishmen gave plenty of jobs to these people who have become adept in their own way. It was at this stage the great calamity occurred. Till now, there was hereditary trade for each one and there was no worry about finding a living. Now, following the Brahmin, others too gave up their traditional trades and took up the jobs the British gave, the trades that came with them in the banks, railways, etc. Moreover, with the growth in machine power, physical labor was less in demand, and some who earned a living through physical labor had to seek other jobs. Instead of the demarcation that such and such jobs are for such and such people, the serious phenomenon of rivalry for jobs came about in our country. Once there is rivalry, usually jealousy, enmity, quarrels, and an array of other similar things have to follow. Apart from that, the Brahmin had a higher intellectual ability due to his ancestors having peddled, as I told you earlier. Due to this, the Brahmin was leading in studies, jobs, etc. Despite being a small percentage of the population, the Brahmin monopolized most of the government jobs in the college, medical field, law, etc. Will this not create hostility in others? The British saw that if this mutual enmity is fomented further, they can make the rule more stable. He brought in the Aryan Dravidian race theory. He effectively sowed the seeds of discord among people who were like children of one mother. In the bitterness that was born in the atmosphere of rivalry, the tactics adopted by the British succeeded well. The Brahmin also did another thing so as to double the enmity. Though on the one hand he gave up his Jati Dharma and along with the Englishmen spoke of equality, calling the old order barbarous and exploitative, on the other hand he did not move close to others but thought himself to be superior and prided on it. In olden times too, he did not move physically close to other, but there was some justification for it. Keeping in view several functions, there has to be differences in the type of food and other matters. They have to be in different environments. The place where the film is watched has to be dark. While shooting for cinema takes place, it has to be well lit. In the same establishment, the person working in the canteen has to be extremely clean. The person who cleans the machine has to be in soiled, oil-stained clothes. Would that mean that the server is superior to the machine man? In the same way, the person who selflessly cherishes his intellectual ability has to starve. But the person in the army must eat well, and even meat etc. is not excluded for him. There is nothing wrong. Because the food taken by the Brahmin is different from that taken by a Kshatriya, would it mean that they are opposed to each other? But because there is no enmity, if he moves too close to him, sitting with him and eating, he will get the desire to taste the other person's food. That desire will pull him and finally cause harm to his dharma. For each community of people, its own Kula dharma followed by the clan, customs and food habits are appropriate. But in the name of equality, if all people physically come close and create confusion by mixing up the individual arrangements of different communities, all affairs will get spoiled and overall public affairs will suffer. It is for this reason that in villages separate streets existed as Agraharam, Vellalar Street, Cheri, etc. This was possible in rural life. But in the modern city life, this is not practicable. Everybody going to work in shifts in the same manner, sitting together in the canteen and eating the same food has become the order of the day. It has become necessary that in this way people have to mix. The Brahmin who is required to undertake fasts and follow other disciplines without fail has become like all others in all respects. Since the college timings, office timings, etc. come in the way of his karma anushtanam, he let them go and became like others. Till now, he had observed these things only for the welfare of others. It was mainly for that. Like a dharmakarta, trustee, he preserved and protected these dharmas for the sake of society and gave the benefits to all. Now, even while saying, I am one with them, all are equal, he has become a contender for all posts, much to the heartburn of others. As if this is not enough, even though he lived a life without control and in no way better than others, since in the heart of hearts he was thinking himself superior, inimical feeling of others towards him would increase, is it not? There is the story of the person who polluted himself and polluted also the Chandra Pushkarini temple tank. In much the same way, the Brahmin gave up his own dharma and also made others give up their dharma. Having given up his dharma, he has no higher status. Even when he was following his dharma, there was no justification for him to claim that he was superior. Each one does one function, I am doing this, should have been his humble attitude. But because he lived a selfless life of harsh discipline and purity, others on their own gave him respect and accorded to him higher status. Now he has made himself a target of much bitter criticism, which is coming as if cumulatively. It is my firm opinion that the Brahmin alone is responsible for the decline of the Hindu society. Some people offer justification for this. The Brahmin had to spend time in Veda Adhyayana and performance of yajnas, etc. It was necessary to spend his entire lifetime for this alone. If he spends all his time in performing yajnas and protecting the Shastras, what will he do for his living? If he goes in search of money, the mission of his life will not be done. Part-time work is not enough for his life's mission. If he takes up another trade for a living, a discipline laid down for his daily ritual and routine will suffer. Then, like a medicine administered without restriction on food, his spiritual strength will weaken and the world will lose the benefit that would accrue from it. That is why the Shastras have permitted the Brahmin alone to perform yajnas. Considering the good that accrues to the world by the performance of yajnas and yagas, adhyayana, protection of Shastras, etc., the kings themselves gifted them land, house, cows, gold, etc., so that they would not be in want to meet minimum needs. Simply because the kings gifted, they were not to accept them without a limit. If they do so, it will draw them to sensual pleasures and spoil the evolution of the self. Also, if they accept too much, they may have to be afraid of the giver and interpret the Shastras to suit his wishes. They will have to swerve from the position of impartiality. For these reasons, the Shastras have laid down that the Brahmin should not keep even a paisa more than he needs. This way, they followed their dharma with the support of the kings. With the advent of British rule, there were no more royal grants to them. How can they survive without any income? That is why they had to take English education, government jobs, etc. It was the compulsion of the circumstances which pressured them like this. They should not therefore be blamed. This is the justification put forth by some people. There may be some justification in this, but I feel it is not entirely justified. When there was the Mughal Empire and rule by various sultans, although some pandits went for darbar employment, did not others continue with their performance of dharma without any royal grant? Emptying of the entire agraharams, destruction of villages, Veda Patashalas being reduced to non-existence, all lands being converted into mere certificates, all these calamities happened within about the last 100 years only. Till the time of the generation previous to that period, Veda Dharma remained unaffected. The reason for this is not the Hindu Rajas alone. People of all Varnas of the Hindu society wholeheartedly wished that Veda Dharmas should not decline and the Brahmin Jati should not wither away, and therefore gave liberally and protected them. Even today, there are hundreds of Veda Patashalas which are empty for want of Brahmin students who had advanced the capital and established them. Largely, it is Natukottai Chettiars, Nagarattar, Komutti Chettiars, agriculturalists who owned large farms. The help rendered by the Nagarattars for temple renovations is enormous. In the same way, in the faith that the base for this temple is Veda, only if Vedas are there, the pujas in the temple and its sanctity will remain, they established a Veda Patashala along with every temple renovation work all over Tamil Nadu. The Vellalars, who were big landowners, gave liberally for Veda Patashalas. Even after the advent of the British rule, without being attracted by the comfortable living which the British made possible, if the Brahmin had lived within the minimum needs laid down by the Shastras, other members of the society would certainly have extended to them the means for such living. When they had not let him down, he himself deserted the Agraharam and the Veda Patashala and literally came away running. He had tasted the new comforts which became available through jobs and Western civilization. The noble ideals that body care should be limited to the extent that is necessary for evolution of the self disappeared. The justification meted out that he gave up his dharma because he had nothing for his living is unacceptable. It has to be admitted that he developed illegitimate desire for things in excess of his needs. If there is no means for living in the village, having come to towns like Madras, he should have been satisfied if he got something for his living. If he was contented, then what has been said above would be correct. What do we see in practice? Even if he gets 1000 rupees in Madras, he runs to Delhi if he is offered 2000 there. Whatever little dharma he can practice here, he gives up there. Even if $4,000 are offered as salary in New York, he runs away from this continent to another continent, starts living in all sorts of ways. He throws away even the little religious disciplines which he had retained. Do they offer more money in the army? I shall join the army too. Even if I have to eat meat and chicken, it does not matter, he thinks. We see that he is prepared to do everything for the sake of money. Therefore, the justification meted out for the Brahmin giving up his swadharma does not hold water at all. I go one step further. Let us assume that because new science and the machine age etc. came along with the British, the attraction for the old dharmas started waning on its own among our people of all other jatis. Let us also assume that because of the Aryan Dravidian feelings introduced by the British, the other communities decided not to protect the Brahmin. This is not a fact, but I am asking that this should be assumed. Let us also assume that the Brahmins faced a situation in which, by running away from home and only by doing some job, that they could get a morsel of food. Even if such a situation had arisen, I say that they should have remained firmly committed to Veda Adhyayanas and observance of religious disciplines with the determination, even if we are to die, we will die continuing to perform our dharma. But there is no use talking now about what the first generation people should have done. They have left this world. What I thought they ought to have done, I am telling those who are here today. That is to say, even in the face of death, Swadharma should not be given up. Even now, are we going to live for all time? We are going to die as degraded people, having collected a lot of money and more shame than that, being the cause of other people's jealousy and having given up our Swadharma. Is it not great then that even if we do not have our next meal, we should preserve the Vedas till our last breath, even if we have to starve? If you do like this, let others praise us or criticize us. How does it matter to us? When we are not competitors, no one will be jealous of us or have heart-burning feelings against us, is it not? They may ridicule us, saying that we are simpletons not fit for the times. Let them do it. Are we less subject to ridicule today? Instead of giving up our dharma and making a living and the world laughing at us, why not we continue to do our dharma and live even if we are laughed at or we may even die? People talk of my country, my language, etc. They fight for it and even give up their lives. It is not as if they are important issues like the fight for freedom. There are people who are prepared to commit self-immolation by pouring kerosene over themselves simply because a small part of a district has been transferred to another district. Just as these people can do this for a simple opinion they hold, why could not the Brahmins have considered life as a trifle and protected their dharma when a new-fashioned lifestyle came with the British? Better than securing comforts by accepting another man's dharma is to continue in one's own dharma and, if necessary, die in that process. The Lord says in the Gita, Nidanam Shreyaha. Death is better. What is the reason given for Brahmins not having changed during Mughal rule but changed during British rule? It was with the British, science and machines came and tools for speedy completion of work such as electricity, motor car, etc. It is said that so many facilities and comforts which could not have been even thought of came with the British, and the Brahmin was attracted by them and fell for their ways. This may be the reason, but it cannot be a justification or explanation. The body of the Brahmin is not meant for sensual pleasures. It has come about only for following the discipline meant for protecting the Vedas for the welfare of the world. The fundamental dharma is that a large measure of the things of worldly pleasure should not be associated with it. Giving up that dharma and the spirit of sacrifice involved in it and desiring the enjoyments easily acquired by modern tools is absolutely wrong. Greatness lies in protecting Swadharma even in adverse circumstances. Their having failed to do that is a serious mistake. It is as a result of this that we, who were the children of the same mother, experience the hostile feelings that have developed between us. We have brought about big sorrow to others. What started as a denial of admission to colleges and job to Brahmins has gradually reached a stage when others are also facing the same plight. So long as rural life was conducted in a simple way with human labor, everything was all right. In the situation prevailing today, when due to machine and industries, wants have increased and life has become complicated, everyone has to struggle for admission to colleges and securing jobs. What is the remedy now? I am asked, do you expect that Brahmins will give up their present lifestyle and return to Adhyayana? Whether I expect it or not, whether you consider it practicable or not, I have to say that they have to do so. To keep quiet when our basic dharma is lost, there is no need for a Guru Pitam and the position of an Acharya. Religions and mutts exist only to tell that even if a thing looks impossible, such ideals have to be achieved. They have to concentrate all their energies and toil for this. There were people who said, what? Driving away the British by Satyagraha? It is impossible. Many things which once were thought to be impossible have been achieved in this world. It is not for me to think that this is an impossible task and talk of giving up Satya and Dharma. To do it or not to do it is in your hands. All that I can do is only to tirelessly put in your ears what has been enjoined in our Dharma Shastras. It is for me to tell you what the Shastra have ordained as your duty and insist on your following it, whatever the difficulty. Om Sri Mahaperiyava Sharanam. Jai Jai Shankara, Hara Hara Shankara.